First thing, establish a center line down your stave. This one's already half prepared. It's decrowned, and I'll explain more about that later. So the reason the string was angled was because there's a couple wormholes in both ends. So I'm drawing out the handle in the middle, marking the fades out, and that angles out to the limb width. It's right about 1.5 inches until 12 inches before the tip, and then tapers down towards the tip. And you could see one of the wormholes there. Now I'm just going to work down towards the lines. Just take your time working down towards the lines. It's helpful to go on one side, then the other side. Work one angle or edge at a time. And those wormholes, they bore in deep. And that's common in Osage and a lot of different types of wood. Whether it be small bug holes or larger ones. And I actually found the bug inside there, the old dead bug. I'm just cleaning up the backside, and so the middle of the tree is decrowned, and you can see it looks just like that. That's from the book from the Traditional Bowyer's Bible, and that's what our stave looks like. And you can see it's one growth ring right in the middle all the way down. And on the edges is just parallel lines, just like the bow above it, which is just as strong as a traditional bow with one growth ring all the way along the back. There's another view where you can kind of see it there. A lot of good reflex or back set. That's going to be the back of the bow. So we're just making a reference line with the compass, following the grain. The back part of the compass there is touching the back of the bow. So we want even width to start with, and then eventually it'll taper from the fades to the tip. But that's just a good starting point. Using a farrier's rasp works well, as well as a card scraper. Now we're just floor tillering it, checking the initial bend. It's already real stiff there. Good luck trying to get a string on that. Working around the wormhole. I didn't want to take off too much wood with the draw knife. But if you turn the draw knife on end, you can make shavings just like with the card scraper. And this is just a curved card scraper. Try and get inside there. Trying to save as much wood as we can. Just keep working your way down to the line nice and slow. Keep checking floor tiller. And then once you start to get more of a bend, round off the edges. If the edges are sharp and 90 degrees, it's more likely to break in that spot. So it's good to do that on the top and bottom.
Yes.
It's looking good. It's looking straight so far. Now we'll get the recurve jig. And I just made an extra block of wood on the end so I don't have to clamp the bow on there. But it was just a little thick, and so I took that off, and then I ended up clamping it on anyway. Now I'm using a heat gun, and once you get wood to a certain point, it starts to plasticize. And you can see it starting to bend there. Now I messed up on one side, and it was a little thick, and it cracked on me. but it was right towards the top, so I was able to save the limb at the end. I was just able to shave the rest of that off. I only did a little bit of a recurve because the bow was so short. Now I found out generally it's a good idea to be right around 1/2 inch before you start to bend it. 1/2 inch or less. Otherwise, a lot of the wood that I've tried has started to break on me. Having a vise is real nice to clamp it in, or a shaving horse like I have off there to the right. You don't want to overdo it. You saw my power sander next to it. You want to be careful if you're using power tools. And there I'm using it. So that's drawing out the fade there. I eventually just made the whole thing a working limb, which we'll see later on. So I shaved that whole handle flat. All this work right here is for nothing. So the bow is only about 53, 54 inches, so the whole thing needs the work. That's why I didn't make or keep a stiff handle section. We're also making a bow for Flint at the same time. He's doing a good job, but he loses motivation pretty quick. Then let's cut the nocks. And that's a tile saw right there. Learned that from Clay Hayes' channel.
Are you gonna cut off that spot?
Learned a lot of things from his channel. Put it on the tillering tree. And that's a scale below it. See, we're all the way up to 50 pounds of draw right there. You don't want to draw it over your desired draw weight. Maybe 5 pounds more. Maybe about 55. Because that starts to compress the wood fibers too much on the belly, which creates a permanent bend, and it's called set in the bow world, and lowers your performance. And it's good to check with calipers. You check on one side, then the other side. Check with your fingers. Your fingers can detect a lot of different variances in the wood. But I'm checking for consistent taper and consistent width on both sides. If one side is thinner than the other, the limb's going to twist right there, and I've done that a few times. Just do about 10 to 20 scrapes a time, each side or wherever you need to, and the essence of tillering is taking off wood where it needs to and leaving it where it's not. So if it's bending more in one spot, don't take off wood there. If it's not bending in a spot, then take off wood in that spot. But it takes practice. Anyone can do it. And I'm struggling to put the string on there. And that string is B55. It flexes a lot, but it's good for a tillering string, an initial tillering string. It's good to get a string on as soon as you can, because then it shows a lot more where you need to take off wood or leave wood. If you see too much of a bend in one spot, you can start to get a hinge. You can see on the right side there, it's stiffer. So I need to take off wood on the top. I'm not going to try and torque it back, but also check and make sure that the string, the two tips, are lined up with the center of the handle. Now the right side is stiffer there, so we need to take off wood on that side. And use a straight edge or a card scraper, and you can see where the limb is bending more or less. And so I'm going to mark where to leave wood and where to take off wood. Take off wood there. X's mean leave it. You still want to blend it though, and just lightly go over the other spot if you have to. And you just continue to keep working back and forth with that process. So you can see I took the wood off the handle. The middle is just bending slightly, which is what you want. Getting closer, looking better. Not showing you the scrapes back and forth every time. Getting more and more each time. Now the right side is a little bit stiffer there. So I was working the first third out near the handle. A little bit more even there. And this whole process took a few days because I would take breaks in between.
50.
Shaping the tips up. Ooh, pretty nice. Feels good. Now, what I noticed with this D-style bow is that there's more hand shock. I tillered it so there's just a little bit of bend here, so it's working just slightly. But you don't want it working too much from what I've read. This is the first one I've made. So what I've read, if it's too much of a bend right here, you get a lot more hand shock. That's why with the bows, they're big, thick risers, thicker handles, a little bit more mass here, dampens that hand shock, and helps with the experience of shooting. But I had to do it for this one. You know, I had to essentially make this into one big limb because it's so short. Only about 54, 53 inches from nock to nock. So I had to make the whole thing work for my right around 27-inch draw length. I may take off just a little bit more, a few more strokes, but I'm gonna call it done. A little bit more tweaking to happen, but for now, just keep shooting. It's good to keep shooting and shoot in the bow. It helps break it in a little bit more. Then maybe some other tillering issues might occur. It might happen. So it's good to leave yourself a little bit of time, a little bit of tweaking action as well. First Osage bow that I've ever made, decrowned, and I learned this from Spink, Master Boyer, old survival seer guy that mailed me this piece of wood. Thank you again, Spink. Someday I'll be at your level, probably not, but for now I'm happy with this one. Hopefully we'll get the job done with it. Oh, keep surviving.